Welcome back to Winter Wolf's Den, guys. King Z, Winter Wolf here. We're going to be covering The Last of Us on HBO Max, the series, of course. Episode 3 just wrapped up a little while ago. For you guys that don't know, this one ran a little long, and I don't think we were expecting that. Runtime was somewhere in the neighborhood of like an hour and 15. So definitely check your timings if you're on a time budget there. But before we get into the show, we have some exciting news from Winter Wolf's Den. King Z and I decided to do our first ever channel giveaway, and we're going to be doing, as King Z pops it up on the video here, we have a little giveaway for Hogwarts Legacy due out next week. I think it comes out Friday next week. We're giving away a download code to anybody that figures out our little game. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the video, but you do have to stay tuned for the whole thing, and we will be giving away a code for a download of your choice on the platform of your choice, so that's exciting stuff. But first, we're going to get into our opening salvo. Okay. Now, here's a question for you that I thought of when I was watching this show, completely unrelated to The Last of Us in every way except zombies. Dude, on the spot, if you had to pick an all-time favorite zombie flick, what is your favorite?
Favorite zombie flick? I'm going to go with...
I put him right on the spot.
I'm going to go with Woody Harrelson and Zombieland.
There it is. Okay. All right. Dude, why? What's the big takeaway there? Because of Columbus? Because of Tallahassee?
No. Well, because of it's based off of one of Matt Brooks' books, How to Survive. I think it's like How to Survive the Zombie Apocalypse.
The zombie
so
apocalypse.
They use that as you remember the rules, like rule 1, cardio, rule 2, double tap. So that's based off of Matt Brooks. If you don't know who Matt Brooks is Mel Brooks' son, and he's the one who wrote World War Z, the book, not that stupid ass movie that they made that shares its name. But
that was a very stupid ass movie.
Yeah, but got to meet him in person. He's a great guy to talk to. Got an autographed World War Z book from him.
Nice.
But yeah, that would be my pick. Would be Zombieland, because it was funny. There was action, and I mean it was Woody Harrelson being Woody Harrelson. Jesse Eisenberg being Jesse Eisenberg. I mean, he plays the same character. And then, of course, you always have the great... Oh, my God, I just drew a blank on her name.
Bill Murray.
Oh, Bill Murray. That was a great thing, where he played a zombie. You know, it's so easy to get tea times right now.
Dude, that was a good one. Now, what'd you think of the sequel to that? Did you ever see Zombieland 2?
Yeah, I did. It didn't live up to the first one.
Yeah.
First one, it's so hard to do a sequel, though. It is so hard.
I think it was about 5 years too late, too. Like 5 or 7, however, whatever that gap was in between. I think it took its sweet ass time coming out. So yeah, dude, Zombieland's a good pick. I go the other way on that one. I think if I got to pick an all-time favorite out of a genre that I typically love, even like D-list entries in zombie horror, dude, I'm a 28 Days kind of guy. 28 Days Later kind of guy.
Fire ant zombies are your thing?
Dude, I like Bleak. I like Unforgiving. I like the good guys are probably gonna lose in my zombie movies, and that entire movie was like one gut punch or one nut punch after another. You know, like they think they made it through a checkpoint, and like the dude looks up and like a single drop of blood gets him in the eye and infects him. You know, then it's like he's made the first attempted victim is his daughter. It was all the right punches and all the absolute right places for me in that movie. I loved it. It's
great
too bad
actor
they never
there.
got around to the third one.
Yeah, great actor there. Brendan Gleeson played that guy who died in his eye. Great actor.
I can never remember his name. Yep, that's exactly what it is.
I've actually worked with him on 2 different projects.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I worked with him on Green Zone.
Yep.
And then I worked with him again on Mr. Mercedes.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Mr. Mercedes, that's not a Stephen King adaptation, is it?
Yes, it is. Based off of the book, Mr. Mercedes.
That's what's going on.
Yeah. It lasted 3 seasons.
I'll have to go back and retro look into that. I didn't know you were on that one. You never mentioned it before. I'll have to go back and check that out.
The director of it is the same director who directed The Red Wedding.
Oh, dude, well, that explains why it got itself 3 seasons, because that was probably an all-time best episode of Game of Thrones, as everybody knows, and to the surprise of absolutely nobody. So there's that. We got some shots fired there in the opening salvo. Stick with us as we get even deeper into the weeds in the next segment.
Am I the meanest?
Show meta.
Am I the baddest mofo low down around this time?
Show meta.
Welcome to the show Meta for the third episode of The Last of Us on HBO. This episode is called A Long, Long Time, and its runtime is a full hour and 20 minutes, the longest episode, I believe, to date. I mean, it's almost a feature-length movie at that point. This episode...
Yep.
Yeah. The director of this episode was Peter Hoare, H-O-A-R. He's known for directing the Umbrella, some episodes of the Umbrella Academy, 2 episodes, 3 episodes of Daredevil, and a TV miniseries called It's a Sin.
Never seen that, never heard of that. Okay.
So in this episode, we follow our favorite zombie apocalypse survivors and Joel and Ellie after the events that took Tess away from us. Moment of silence for Tess. And then we get to meet 2 new characters, Bill and Frank. You get to see a very in-depth as they are survivalists and how Joel and their lives intertwine.
Thank you, King Z, for the show meta as always. Up next, Assault Mode. All right, dude, this was a whole different animal this week. We only talked for a minute beforehand because it got over so late, but this was a whole different bag o' zombie apocalypse kind of show. Lots of different stuff to break down here, but a big chunk and a big change of pace and change of gears as we more or less shift entirely away from Joel and Ellie after about the first, 8 minutes or so, and then the wrap-up 8 minutes, and we get into a whole nother pair of couples that I'm pretty sure are canonical to the game, and I'm going to touch on that in a second. But just real quick in terms of pacing and that 3-arc story flow that you and I are always talking about, does this upset the balance? Because I feel like a lot of people, subject matter notwithstanding, because we're going to talk about other people and getting into those impressions also, I'm sure. Did this throw the brakes on?
I believe Pixar did it better in 15 minutes than they did in an hour. In an hour, they gave this whole story an hour to develop, and I didn't see the point of how it played into the plot. Minus a few cool scenes, I believe this was a complete slam on the brakes, let me get my agenda across type episode.
True. When you say Pixar, which Pixar project got this particular story across better?
Up.
Oh, okay. Yep. I got you. I just had to jog the memory for a minute.
Yep,
True
the
that.
love
Okay,
story.
I can see that. Yep, I can see that. Yeah, so we get a whole lot of focus on Frank and Bill. And I know that's the particular subject matter is going to be off-putting to a certain population of people. That goes without saying. I think that if you move past that initial impression of whatever your interpretation of agenda is, I think the story they gave us, that if unnecessary in terms of the larger story arc of The Last of Us like you're talking about, they at least did it well. And I think that's enough for me to get through it. It wasn't...
That's because you had 2 great actors portraying these characters, and they portrayed it in a well.
Right. I think the writing was good. Their acting was good. Bill and they were both good. The actor that played Bill did the tearful, strong, silent thing, the stoic guy that had to cope with loss. And then I thought the actor that played Frank was very gregarious, very charismatic. I liked him the minute the situation evolved to the point where they were on even footing. And one of them, the power dynamic was more even. I thought that reflexively as a couple, it was. I know people like this. That these are arguing married couples in their 50s and 60s. So it's like it reflected folks I knew without. I didn't think it pandered too hard to the alphabet community. It was just a story that happened to have those guys, so I didn't care. It didn't throw it at my face at expense of pointing out that the rest of the cis hetero norm world is evil or something like that. So I didn't.
No, it didn't do that.
You know what I mean?
I just don't see how it played into the objective of the series.
Right. I read that loud and clear.
It's like
why
am I watching an hour cutscene of 2 secondary characters?
Right, and they're not even secondary characters in the game. Like, I think by the time, where the show deviates from the game, and I didn't watch the walkthrough of the game, full disclosure, and it's been a hot minute since I played the game, but I think the Bill character in the game is only referenced in a collectible that Joel finds, when he gets to that character's house or his workshop or something, and he reads the note that says, I can't go on without Frank, yada, yada, yada. But he is the survivalist character that leaves ammo and crafting parts in the game. So that you're right. They basically took like a one segment pickup from the game and ran with it for an hour. Now, I'm all about the Easter eggs. You know this. We've pointed this out through 2 shows. Yeah. I like when they tie in backstory like that. But geez Louise, like they moved all the chips in to create that segment. And as good as it was, I think you're right. I could have gotten away with about a half hour of that and then more of Joel and Ellie. I needed more of that. It's too early in the game for them not to focus on those two. It's akin to how I complain about Book of Boba Fett, where I go, well, Boba Fett didn't have lines of dialogue in 2 episodes out of 6, and they had to bring the Mandalorian in to rescue those crap episodes. This was an okay episode in terms of the production of what they gave us, but I think you're right. I think they poured some ice water on a fire that they had built for 2 episodes.
Yeah, and I don't know the purpose of it. Maybe they wanted a completely down episode. Maybe to show what life was like for people outside of a quarantine zone. I really don't know what the point was because it didn't further the plot.
Let me float you this question in terms of that, because I was thinking that too, because I know we talked in our prologue, and you guys can go back and check out the older episodes in the back catalog of the Last of Us list that we've got going on the channel. We were talking about, is there a way to borrow from the World War Z concept where they get into like the anthology storytelling and tell us more elsewhere kind of stories? Is this something we can maybe expect from this show? Like in 2 more episodes, maybe Joel and Ellie come across, a child's doll or something. I don't remember all the stuff from the game. I should probably rewatch the playthrough. Like, do they find a knickknack somewhere from another person, like a mother or a father, that has like a child's toy in their backpack, and then do a flashback to the day before they lost their kid to the pandemic, to an accident or violence or infection or something like that? Is this something you think they're going to do again? Because this show's in the can, guys. They're not going week to week. They're not going to get feedback from this and say, oh, this turned off about half of our viewership, either A, because they didn't like the subject matter, or B, because the guys like us were like, but what did this accomplish? Joel was going to go there and gear up anyway, whether or not Bill was alive or not alive.
Yeah.
This would probably be a good point to do the whole spoiler alert thing before we get really into it. So I'm going to run that real quick.
So, with that said, I didn't think of it that way, of trying to outline the world with the anthology thing. Maybe that's what they're going for, to explain it, but I believe it just hit the brakes on a show that was pretty well paced to begin with in the first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking for content, the game has tons of it already. I mean, I don't know why you need to add stuff. Execution-wise, they executed a great story, but I think if they went with like I said, Pixar did it better in 15 minutes. Half an hour, 40 minutes tops, you could have told the same story of them meeting, their dynamic, their life together, and then, of course, their passing.
It's. I think you're exactly right with that, because one of my notes, deep into page 2 of the notes here, is that the writers sold me like a lifelong relationship through its like meeting point, ups, downs, and end, and I had already written that it was getting long at like the 30-minute mark. So it went on for like 30 more minutes, and then it had its touching end kind of thing. Yeah, and I think you might be right. I think that this show, I think it's a little too early on for a non-big name IP like a Game of Thrones or something like that, where they have a little bit of flexibility to kind of not abandon the main characters and the main plot, but kind of give it some back burner time so they can do up some other side character stuff, like you said. Because again, with the spoiler alert we just ran, we're not seeing these 2 characters again. Like, their story is done, told, it's clipped, it's shipped, like it's in the box, like it's done. So did we really need an hour's worth of Bill and Frank's life, regardless of the quality that they gave it to us? Yeah,
we could wrap the whole episode in the hour, because the Joel and Ellie stuff was on point. It was quick, it was to the point, it moved the plot along of what they're to and then they went on this whole B story that manipulated the whole episode, that did nothing for the plot except you knew he was a prepper or survivalist.
Survivalist. True that. I'm gonna roll our camera. I'm gonna roll our not our camera. We're gonna roll our clock back for a little bit here and just get into some of my more observations from the beginning. Just because, without doing the scene by scene breakdown, I just want to make sure we hit all of our bases, all of our numbers. I was a little disappointed there was no scientist intro this week. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, real quick, because I definitely vibed on that the first 2 episodes, and I know that was kind of a plus point for me at the end of episode 2. As good, that woman was amazing in that role as the infectious disease specialist there.
Yeah, I believe they're going to go further away from that as we know more, and now they're telling the story more in Joel telling Ellie the story of like how the first infection happened, which is a great explanation of how patient Zero got infected.
That was a pretty unique and effective way of putting that out there, and it actually ties into what that doctor said in episode 2, because the patient Zero over there worked at a processing, like a flour processing plant or a sugar plant or a mill or something like that. So that's a neat way that they reaped that back, that they roped that kind of back in.
Yeah,
so
it could be the people who ate it, and then of course when you're working the flour, you're getting exposed to that. You're breathing it in. I mean, that's why a lot of them do wear masks, even working in a flour, because you're breathing that in. But I mean, the mask only protects 29% of airborne stuff coming in anyways, unless it's huge. Some of that stuff is very fine flour. Right? Yeah.
Yep, it's true. Yeah, I was hoping when they early on, after they had done the Cumberland Farms bit, Joel and Ellie's relationship's coming along. They're having a little bit more dialogue. Early on, you see Joel throw her like the scrap of food kind of thing. So he's already engaging a little bit more of like the caretaker bit. They're walking and talking. They're gonna hit up an old Cumbies that he had stashed some bug out gear and kind of stuff along the way and whatnot. They get there, they wrap up that scene. Ellie knifes up infected down below in like a crawl space. I got a couple of nitpicks and stuff just from somebody that's played and watched every survivalist horror game that there is. No, number one, why did this dude let this chick go into a crawl space in an unattended room alone when they're outside the quarantine zone? That was just weird. I was like, dude, why are we doing this? This is stupid.
The part I seen is when Joel killed an infected in the last one inside the was it the train station or the state house?
Yeah.
There was enough stuff around him so he could trigger the other ones. This guy's been there for a while. Why wasn't there enough stuff around him to trigger another infestation run?
I hadn't even thought of that. That's a good point. And I also just there's pluses and minuses all over that little scene where number one, it's like Joel's clomping around making noise in this store. Like I thought they were on like silence protocol, like out in the wild. I thought that was just assumed, number one. And then, but then a plus is, Ellie's dumbass drops down the hatch to go explore, because teenagers explore, they do stupid shit. But she had the sense of mind. They wrote her at least resourceful and kind of intelligent. She had the good sense to take the trash can and roll it back to the crawl space. So if you guys have seen the episode, she kind of drops down beyond an easy ability to jump and climb up. So she had to put something there that she would have had to have jumped on in a panic to be able to like scoop and then pull herself up. So I thought that was at least a nice, interesting bit that they thought through that kind of thing. And I think this show has a pretty good beat on that as a target, where characters do logical things. They do some logical things after they make stupid decisions to kind of like raise your tension level and think, oh, why are you going in the dark basement? Why would you do that? Oh, okay, you moved a trash can over here and you took your gun out or your flashlight out. Logical. So they mix in just enough to string you along to think something awful is going to happen.
Yeah. The other good part of that scene was him putting away the M4, saying bullets are hard to come by. There's no sense in me carrying the weight around.
Oh, see, I didn't like that. And again, I think it's because I think there's too much horror game in me and not enough realism in me. Like, I get not wanting to carry the weight, but I also get that the next place you go might have like a military checkpoint and one of those ammo boxes unclaimed, stacked with like magazines ready to go.
Yeah,
so,
but in real life,
you want to carry the 7
pounds,
that.
Like, you got to think they're going through places where raiders have already been. You have survivalists like the Bill character who've already gone over these places, picked it clean. You might find a round. You might find a magazine.
I guess he would know. As a guy that's been out of the zone and into the zone, he probably knows within 10 miles or 15 miles or whatever what the situation really is. I mean, I guess that's fair. I guess if you reframe it like that, it's good. But I saw that and I was like, this guy already gave up thousands of rounds at the State House.
Yeah, if you would have picked up that stuff, as we talked about in the last episode, he wouldn't have to give up the gun.
Had you done this, you could have had a backpack full of magazines and made Ellie Sherpa that backpack for you. Build up a little muscle.
That's right. She could have been the
Sherpa.
the
ammo
mule.
Sherpa. That's what I'm saying. Come on, should have done that. Let me get rid of this here. Let me get over there.
Yeah, at that point, it's when we jumped into Bill and Frank's story.
It was a really interesting transition too that I was just about to bring up, where they're walking and they're heading in one way, and Joel's like, listen, we need to go this way because there's some stuff up ahead. I don't want you to see it. It's too much for you and this and that. And of course, Ellie does the teenager thing and they go over there, and they're a little back and forth there, kind of endearing. It's getting into a better, more amicable spot than outright hostility, which is good. That's what they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
They come up on the side of a mass grave.
Yes.
Right? Skulls, bones, tattered clothing, discarded luggage, the whole nine, right? Joel and that's when Ellie starts asking like the history questions, like, dude, what happened? And Joel basically says, back then they tried to clear out small towns to take people to a quarantine zone if there was room. And then the transition, the shot's lingering on some ripped up child's fabric clothing that's kind of just all tattered into the small bones, big bones, everything else, right? And it transitions to the world before, like, day 0 or whatever, or day 1 probably, September 2003, the date that he had told her earlier in the episode. And it's a woman cradling her kid, waiting for her turn, the kid that was wearing the untattered version of those clothes, waiting to get on a military truck to be brought to the QZ.
Yeah, great transition that they use, the editor and the story. The part that gets me, and it's the underlining theme of this, and it hurts me in my bones. So I'm going to go on a little rant right here.
Here we go.
The military is portrayed as evil. I was in the military for 21 years. I served this country. And what do people think whose side we're really on? Do you think we're going to trust the government, or are we going to have your back? And that's who we are here to protect. And them treating the military as some Nazi dictatorship is completely wrong. The thing you don't know about the military, everyone's seen the oath. If you've gone to any type of military appreciation, you see new recruits take the oath. And of course, when you're enlisted, there's a part of the oath that says to obey the orders of the president and all officers appointed over me in accordance with regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Officers, like myself, our oath is different. We've pledged to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Period. We are not sworn to obey the orders of the President of the United States, because if the President's orders are illegal, our job is to defend the Constitution first, because the person defend the office, not the man or the woman who's in office. So portraying the military in such a negative light, which it had one shining hope. Frank came in and saved me. Frank came in and saved me. I was about to really blast this. And his line was, they weren't before they were. So it might have been a change. They are now. Yeah. So maybe in the storyline something changed, but people think if there's a great line in another show, one of my old favorites, even though it's I disagree with their politics, The West Wing.
Quote it. Yep.
The West Wing, and his they were joking around about a military coup because he gave the president a shot. It was his flu shot. He's like, oh, this is the beginning of a military coup. He's like, get the Secret Service in here. And he goes, how do you know the Secret Service is going to be on your side? And that's the thing. The military is going to be on the side of the people. The military will not turn its weapon on its own people. That's the part you really have to realize. More than likely, we will turn our weapons against our own before we will turn it on the innocent that we have sworn to protect. And that's my rant.
I think that they get away with using that as a cheap convention in fiction. You've read a lot of military sci-fi. You played a lot of games. I think that's an easy way to put a super scary, super powerful bad guy in the way of the good guy, is to take an institution like the military or like the police, for all the goods and bads that we have across any of our service branches, or our uniform guys on the civilian side, things like that. I think it's just an easy way to install a boogeyman. That way they can have something to be afraid of in the show. I think as far as domestically we go, we've had a couple of ins and outs issues with the military turning on civilians, but nothing widespread like pandemic situations, and definitely not akin to other countries that have definitely, looking at you, China, like, can I say that on YouTube? I don't know if I can say that. But you know what I mean? So we have it pretty good here, and I think most people get that, and that's why most people typically support the military and their actions in terms of domestic policy, things like that. But I'm glad you mentioned Frank, because I'm watching this show at that part, and I'm like, okay, so the one guy not getting in the trucks, very clearly early on, he's in his basement. You know, he's got the UV light overhead. He's got the guns on the wall. There's the Gadsden flags on the wall. He's got the scruffy beard. He's lit in shadows, but you can still see he's a little light of skin. And I'm like, oh, here's the part where they portray the prepper as some nutbag, and he's gonna do something stupid and blow up the truck of civilians and this, that, and the other thing. And then no, he's just a dude. Like, he was just right. Like, he had all his ducks in a row. He had a nice little house and a nice little suburb in Lincoln. You know, it's like 45 minutes this way, which was pretty cool. Dude, do you know if they shot any of this on location? Was any of this actually mass?
I haven't. Majority was shot in Calgary, Canada.
Oh, truthfully, they might have reproduced some of the "Welcome to Lincoln" mass signs, things like. Because I recognize that sign. Like, those are our signs up here that are all over Route 2, stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. But so no, Bill, normal guy, living his thing. What I liked most is that they showed his early on of how he did survivalist prepper stuff. There was a method to his madness. Like, he gated stuff off, he gathered resources, he went and turned the gas back on, he did all of these things that ensured basically he planted the carrots in the garden, things, everything he did. Like, he got extra gas, he gassed up his boat, he bailed for a while and then came back and making sure, you know what I mean? It's like he did all these logical cool things, which was interesting. So even while the pace was slow, I was entertained. I was like, oh, okay. He did this. That was interesting. And then the show transitions into, the Frank and Bill show. Frank shows up. He's wandering around. He falls into one of Bill's, man traps. No pun intended. They work out their differences. Bill lets him up, takes him in, kind of they have their dinner, and they realize they have feelings and this and that. But I'll say before any of that stuff even takes place, I enjoyed their back and forth. And what I enjoyed more than that was, I think that this vignette, if you will, showcases one of the things that the showrunners had said early on about the show, is that this show is going to focus more on the pluses of humanity and not so much the negatives of humanity, like maybe The Walking Dead or 28 Days Later, and they're just going to show people finding joy in things when they can, which is weird for a zombie flick or a show or a game, but I feel like it works. Because we did get this stretch of Bill not holding this dude at gunpoint for an hour and a half. Because that's what happens in literally every other thing, Or the part where he takes him in and serves him dinner. The minute his back turns, boom, knife comes in from behind her. Surprise, Frank was bit, but he was lying. And the scanner thing was, That stuff to me is cliched. So I didn't mind conceptually just having there be a good person who wasn't a paranoid schizophrenic prepper take somebody in. I actually like that.
Yeah, that was fine. I'm just saying they did it for too long. They could have cut a lot of that out.
Yeah, way too long. I think that they needed to speed up that initial part of the romantic stuff as it went through, because they gave us like 3 years later, 4 years later, 7 years later. Then we met Joel and Tess. Then 3 more years, and now I'm old, and I've got a terminal disease, and they covered a lot of ground in that hour. But you're right, dude. I think at the end of the day, I'm just not sure how much of that is really germane to like the ongoing anything else happens story. Because as we know, we already told you guys, spoiler alerts, neither of these characters makes it out of this scenario.
Yeah.
Like they choose their end, after Frank determines he's had his last good day, he takes a tearful Bill, basically, tells him he's gonna give me an overdose so I can die. I have cancer, I have Parkinson's, I have something terminal that can't be, whatever it was, they didn't say.
Yeah, because he even said, even when everything didn't fall apart, they didn't have a cure for this. Right.
So I thought that was suitably charming, romantic, whichever, how they played it out, and that they were just going to die together. They were going to go to sleep together and be gone. But I mean, you're right. We could have taken 20 minutes out of that middle, left in the part where somebody actually makes a run on the compound, because Bill's entire defensive setup was pretty sick. We got motion trip, tripwire flamethrowers firing flame up from the ground was awesome.
Electrocuted fence. We saw him kill one of the infected with a tripwire shotgun.
Yep, which was awesome. That was earlier on. Now, dude, let me ask you this though, as a guy with some experience handling weapons and tactics and things like this, and again, this is me being armchair and just the impression of what I would do. When the Raiders make the play on their house, right? And this is after, I love that it was after Joel basically told them how it was all going to go down when they finally bring Joel and Tess in the flashback to meeting with them so they can exchange goods and work out their differences and this and that. The flames go off and Bill runs outside with a hunting rifle into the middle of the street and engages multiple targets from the middle of the street while well lit with no cover, no concealment, and the worst possible weapon he could have taken into that situation. Well, and of course, as soon as I say that out loud, what happens to him 3 seconds later? Got shot.
Well, it wouldn't be the worst weapon if he stayed on his porch.
Right. Or if he was on his roof somewhere, if he was in a concealed spot. There's all factors that could have played in. But the middle of the well-lit road you have a perimeter that he was in the middle of, and attackers coming from all angles of your setup. Come on, dude. That was stupid. And there was no reason for it. He could have done what you said and just been on the porch and been like, Frank, get down.
Yeah, been on the porch. He could have gone from pillar to pillar, rocking back and forth between the pillar.
Dude, saying.
But
that drove me wild.
Yeah, the good thing is he didn't run out there with a shotgun.
Right. Okay, so that wasn't the worst thing he could have picked. Good point.
Yeah.
But that guy, he's got something better for you than a hunting rifle in that situation, especially if it didn't have like a night-based optic on it. You know,
which we don't know what type of.
I mean, we got a decent little glance at it. You don't think? You think that was rigged up for some kind of thermal imaging? I'd have to go back and
actually,
look.
That looked like a standard
hunting scope.
Yeah, like a 12x.
Right. So I mean, maybe that's just what he had next to his bed. I don't know. But one of the other things in that scene I did like, because I'm a big fan of foreshadowing, as are you, Frank, when he rolls out of bed and realizes Bill's already gone, runs downstairs, hits up the roll down desk, grabs a piece, loads up, runs outside. If we fast forward all the way to the end of the episode, somebody does a little firearm shopping at that desk.
Yes.
So I like that kind of thing. It wasn't just random that Ellie finds the gun in the desk at the end. It's because Bill's a survivalist. He has weapons ready to go at different positions in his home, so he can kind of fend off threats from wherever he is in the house. So it stands to reason that Frank, that threat was resolved in the flashback. Frank and Bill go back inside, they reset their weapons and everything, and then they put it back in the roll top desk. Fast forward 10 years later when Ellie stumbles across it. So I like that. I like that the same way that the song that Bill and Frank played on the piano for each other at the beginning was the Linda Ronstadt song that was on the tape that Ellie put in the truck when they were leaving at the end in Bill's truck. So I like those callbacks. I love that. It encapsulates the episode. It bookends things effectively for me. I like that kind of stuff.
Which plays into the title of the episode.
Right. I was a big fan of that there. So yeah, I think we hit most of our bases with the episode. To get the one wrap-up scene kind of at the end where as they exit the flashback from Bill and Frank after we see the end of both of their lives, which I thought was kind of touching. It was nice. I like, as a medical professional, it's nice when patients are allowed to die with dignity. That's kind of a big thing for me in my circles. Frank was sick. He was ostensibly in a lot of pain day to day. His mobility was in a wheelchair. If you noticed, he was eating soft soup while Bill was eating solid food. Still, he's drinking out of a sippy straw. So his quality of life is kind of dog shit at that point. But, he still had the charming smile that he had from the beginning. And he said, I want one more good day and we're going to do this and this and this. And then, you're going to give me these pills and the wine and I'm just going to go to sleep in your arms, yada, yada. And juxtaposed beautifully against just Bill breaking down on the couch, all tearful, because you could tell that these two men had very different lives leading into the pandemic or epidemic or whatever it was in this world, the apocalypse, where Frank was probably more out than Bill was because he took the lead in the relationship, and every time the relationship was strained, it was Bill that got emotional because he just didn't have that much experience. He's probably a lone wolf type. He's got a whole lot of right-wing attributes, as we pointed out earlier, juxtaposed against he lived in a nice house and all this, some kind of bordering on cliche gay tropes with like the knowing which wine to pair with which thing and this and that. I thought it was a little heavy-handed, a little bit there, but the rest of it was so well done I didn't care. So we get to see, they basically decide to, suicide by overdose together. And I don't know if you noticed this, or maybe it's just my eyes going, but as Bill was pushing Frank down the hall for the last time, as they got to the end of the hall to their bedroom, the camera actually blurred around the edges a little bit. I'm not sure if that was intentional or if that was just something I saw, if that just was a non-issue for the show, but I thought that was kind of tied into the OD thing. I don't know. That's just me, maybe.
It might be, or just the first AC was a little soft on that when it was the best take.
It was, it was very subtle, but I was like, oh, okay, because they overdosed on pills. They're probably opiates, so they haze and they're gonna go out. So that happens, and then it runs into present day, and Joel and Ellie are rolling up on the compound. We know Joel's been there before because the establishing shot is the electric fence with the keypad, the church in the background, and their home over here. So we know they're where they were heading. They let themselves in. We know right away, obviously, what happened because we were there. Joel doesn't, but the door. God.
Well, Joel was picking up on things, like he noticed the flowers were dead, so he was already on point. Like he was already like his he thought something else happened. You can tell that because his danger instinct kind of kicked in.
He went to the sidearm as they were entering, right after they entered the electric fence.
Then he realized the door was unlocked, and he's like, this is not what Bill
and
would
then
have.
Obviously the dead giveaway for Ellie is that the last meal was on the table, like unfinished, and the bag that the pills were in were there. And then Joel does the walk through the house. He tries the bedroom door. It's locked or it's blocked or something. I think it was because there was a little play to it, but it didn't open.
Yeah.
Right? And then when he comes back out, and this was an important part, he had told Ellie to stay in one. No, that was later. Let me roll myself.
No, he told her before he went.
He told her to stay,
around.
And when he comes back, she's there, which is the first time I think she's actually followed the instruction.
Yeah, the door closed, and he thought she went out
the front door. Yes. But when he comes back into the dining room where he had left her, she's there. She's reading the letter that we saw on the table, says to anybody, Joel probably or whichever.
Yeah.
And there was the key to the shed. The letter is what I was talking about earlier. I'm pretty sure the text in that is nearly verbatim from the collectible in the game, because I remember that part about like if anybody else besides you tried to get in, one of my traps would have got him. I'm pretty sure that was in the game. And I thought that the letter itself was fairly poignant. It kind of echoed Tess's last words to him. Like, men like us are put here to do a job. You know what I mean? And, at the end of days and this and that, like, they're gonna need guys like us. It didn't spell it all out, like guys that people laughed at for being ready or for worrying and wanting to be prepared for anything that happens, like the old Boy Scout stuff, but with more guns. You know what I mean?
More guns.
So I thought that was good. And then Ellie's reading the letter to him, and he gets down and says, Bill says, I leave to you all my guns and my equipment, use them to take care of. And then she stops reading, and then he makes her continue. And of course, we see on the screen as the letter comes up, it says, take care of Tess. So there's a friction point that comes up right there between the two of them. It doesn't boil over into a shouting match like it probably would have on the CW. So I was appreciative of that. But I thought that was a fairly touching scene between kind of the two of them and Bill via the letter.
Yeah. And then we kind of just wrap up the episode as they start grabbing supplies. He finds the truck, opens it up, and he's like, oh, no battery. But then he opens the fridge.
There's a gaping hole.
So he opens the fridge, and there's everything to build a battery inside the fridge. So he started building the battery and then charging it. And then they got some new clothes, the wall full of guns.
Took a shower. They got
Took a shower.
Up, which, finding joy in the little things. When Ellie turned the sink on, she was like, they have hot water. Like, she sang it. You know what I mean? So let's talk about Bella Ramsey, because we haven't talked about, because they weren't in the episode for the whole fucking hour. I liked her in this episode a lot. A lot more than I had.
Because she was talking about like how it was her first time in the forest and how she would act in the forest. I didn't think there'd be so many bugs. And like
she was impressed by the crashed plane that was on the hillside.
Yeah, you were in the sky.
Right, and then Joel says, cynically, like you or I would say, like, yeah, we paid $700 for a $15 sandwich and to be crammed in like sardines. And then she's like, but you were flying. He's like, yeah, actually, yeah, you're right. That was pretty dope. So, dude, I like that. Her at the end again with the finding the clothes and being able to take a hot shower, and then when they're in the car at the end, he's like, "Put your seatbelt on." And she's like,
yeah, she didn't automatically
and
just reach up and grab it.
She had no idea what it was. And then when he and then I think again symbolically, maybe heavy-handed, the act of him buckling her in, maybe it's the dad in me, I don't know, but I'm like,
the protector.
That's wolf and cub shit. Yeah, dude, that's what I'm talking about. And then but he's like, yeah, this is your first time in a car, or in a real car, and probably not the back of like a Fedra truck or something. And
yeah, he's like your first time in a car, it's like a spaceship.
Right. And he's like, no, actually, it's a piece of shit 90 Chevy S10. I'm like, I bet in that truck it is a piece of shit. I think my dad had one. It was garbage. But you're exactly right. I think that the more they give her to do that isn't B, and I don't even feel bad about dumping on the CW because it's all bad. But like, if they wrote a 10th of any CW characters in any genre like they write Ellie, I'd watch more of their crap and not crap on their crap. You know what I mean? Like, she has a little bit of range where she can be innocent and vulnerable. She can be kind of like when she shanked the zombie thing, at the basement of the Cumberland Farms, there was some malice there. She wasn't doing that to have fun. There was malice behind. She cut it and then she drove it right through. You know what I mean? Like, she hates them. She does. You know what I mean? Because of what they represent to her and the risks that they put her in, being immune or not. So, I mean, she has a little bit of depth. She's getting a little bit more playful with Joel. Like when she kind of like when they were on the road to the mass grave, and she's like, what am I going to see? Is it going to hurt me? And he goes, well, no, probably not. And she's like, oh, well, you probably should have lied because now I'm just going to go do it. Like, there was jovialness.
You should say ads murder.
Right. That's what I mean. Like, it's not brain surgery like how they're writing her. Like, it's nothing we haven't seen before, but I feel like it's something that we haven't seen in so long, where you can have characters that aren't constantly at each other's throats and just being like miserable douche nozzles. That even though the episode as a whole, I think I agree with you, it took way too long of a detour through Lincoln, Mass to get back to the road west to Wyoming, that I'm kind of like, oh, okay, I mean, this was a good episode. Will I ever watch this episode again? No. There's nothing to take away from this episode in terms of The Last of Us. Am I upset that I watched it? Also, no. Like, it wasn't a waste of time as far as, like, it wasn't a waste of my time. It was a waste of story time, probably. But it definitely wasn't a waste of my time. So that's how that episode wraps up there. They get the truck, they got their supplies, they're heading west, the camera pulls back, and again, I think very tastefully done at the end of that. It doesn't go into a lingering shot of two skeletons together on a bed, which I was kind of nervous that they were pulling back through that bedroom window a little too much. And I'm like, I really don't want to see two skeletons hugging each other. I just didn't want to see for them. And I think we've seen that in like 47 other things where it's like, oh, the couple died together, get it? Like, that's called cliche. Like, I'm glad that was not how this episode ended. All right, guys, we got one more segment for you. Hold on.
Say we take off, nuke the site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
It's, I don't know, man. I think we were just saying about final thoughts for this show. We'll give you guys a little bit of our ratings each. And, as always, I'm going to give you guys a little reminder to King Z, if you could remind them to ring that bell. And my final thought for the episode is, dude, I don't know. This isn't enough to make me not recommend this show to people, because I think that they tried something a little different. I'm not going to fault them for it unless this becomes the kind of the formula for the show going forward. I don't want end caps of Joel and Ellie doing the video game stuff that I remember with an hour's worth of the elsewhere stuff week to week. I think that they can and should have that. They absolutely should have the stuff that makes the world bigger than these two characters, because I think that's one of the things that the Wolf and Cub shows like The Mandalorian tend to get wrong episode to episode, is it's so kind of pared down to them two as the core of the story that a lot of everything else that happens around it feels kind of pointless, like they move on from it. I think that's the same thing with this particular episode. They had too much of stuff that can't, by definition of what it was, have any impact going on in the show because these characters are gone. Like, there's nothing else they can offer us. They're leaving. They're putting actual physical distance between where that story took place and where the story is going. So I think for me, final thoughts there is watch this once and then go back and watch your favorite episodes after the show is done, and you really won't miss anything here. If I had to give this one a rating, I'm going to call it 75 out of 120 minutes wasted, or 2.5 out of 5 for the more traditional rating system.
Yeah, I completely agree. I believe this episode was mostly pointless. It was... it could have had its own like spin-off episode. It could have been a web series, Frank and Bill. And
not a bad idea.
Yeah. Whether you agree with the content or not of the subject matter of, a gay couple surviving together and doing gay stuff, which is mostly that they had a small scene that was associated with sets, but they didn't show anything. All they really showed was male-on-male kissing, which, we see enough straight kissing.
Yep.
So, I wouldn't want to see in this type of show hetero sets either.
Yeah.
It has no place in this show. There's no need for it. So, gay, straight, it doesn't matter. I just don't think there's a need for it. Keeping it to the short that they did, that's a creative choice, not for me to decide. But overall, I think the show's pacing was extremely slow. I didn't need to see that much of their life. They could have cut out half of it, and we still could have got the point across. We had more of what was making the episode good, which was, let me restate that. Frank and Bill, played by Murray Bartlett and Nick Offerman, who's awesome, Ron Swanson. Amazing actors, pulled it off great. They did a great job. I'm not saying they did a bad job and it was bad. It was just too long and too slow. And then what made it good and picked up the pace a little bit was the Joel and Ellie's interaction together. And then, of course, there's that little action scene in the middle of the Raiders coming, just like Joel said. So, overall, I believe it wasn't that great of an episode after what we were... Well, it doesn't live up to the promise that was given in the first two episodes. So, for my rating for this, I'm going to miss the end of the NFC for this. NFC Championship game for this.
Ooh.
So...
Dude, you guys might have to actually mark this on the calendar as the lowest rating the King's has ever given an episode of something we've covered. So I think that's pretty telltale for us. Is I think there's a general sense of, okay, that was a thing, but mild to moderate disappointment from both of our parts. That it really didn't move our A story forward in a meaningful way. It just kind of took a little detour and took a little rest.
And here's the sad part: is that people are going to attack us because they think we're going to be like anti-gay, anti-this, and it's not that. It just was too much of a story.
I think we were very clear on what our expectations are for the show, and what makes sense in the show and what doesn't. And I'll say again, for all purposes and clarity, dude, I don't care. I don't care what the two characters were. If that's your speed, that's your speed. It's not mine, but that's not important to me. Watching the show and judging it on the merits of the writing, the pacing,
I
set
would
design,
have the
production
same
values.
issue if they were straight.
Right, there you go. Like you said, because I think the entire Last of Us game goes through 12 playthrough hours of no romantic subplots at all. That's not anything that comes up. There's no love interest in the middle of the game for anybody. They legit, Joel finds the letter from his friend who happened to be gay that mentions, Frank is gone. I think I'm going to go too, or whatever. There were some mild changes. I think somebody that's an expert on the canon could probably clarify, but I think you're right. I'm hoping next week we get, an exclusively Joel and Ellie story, that shows them either dealing with raiders on their own or something like that. It does not need to be car crash after gunfight after chase scene. Them dealing with psycho people, Walking Dead style for an episode or so, like little arc within an arc, I think is something good. I also, as a final thought for me, I would definitely like another intro of a short intro of an Elsewhere from a doctor that's studying it, like the day after, where they have to make decisions on what they're going to do now that this shit's getting out of control. I think
and those were like 15 to 20 minutes of the episode. They were hard-hitting, they were quick moving, and they got to the point. They could have done the same thing with Frank and Bill. That's all I'm saying.
And let me pitch you an alternative idea as we come up on our time here. I thought what we were going to see from Frank and Bill, just as because they set it up so tense, where he's below ground watching the government putting people in trucks on his surveillance system. I thought this dude was going to kind of like wait them out. He was going to go upstairs, and when he's outside like sweeping the neighborhood with the shotgun, I'm like, this dickhead's going to catch a rifle bullet to the back of the skull, and then we're going to be flashback right to where Joel and Ellie are, because the entire setup was the government just shot people because there was no room for them in the QZ. And I thought that was going to be the point here, is that, oh, you thought you were prepared, but no, sniper got you anyway. Or that there was going to be like a 10 or 15 minute segment of them trying to arrest him or his heroic last stand in his bunker. Maybe that would have been too cliche. Maybe the right-wingers would have hated that if, the government got their guy. Like, I don't know. But the digression into English patient romantic drama at that point, I'm like, okay. I mean, maybe there should have been more than one segment with the Raiders. Like, maybe they should have approached Bill during the day and been like, hey, we're here for this, and this. Hand it over, you've got till sundown, and then it's, oh snap, prepper time, and we see some gearing up. Like, I think that fits more of the tone of what The Last of Us is. But again, like I said earlier, the showrunners and writers and Druckmann kind of went out of their way to say, we're not going to give you guys a show that's kind of chock full of violence. So I think maybe we have to temper maybe our expectations that they're going to give us that in place of these, I don't know what, slice of life, human interest stories. I don't know what else we can call those. But I think that's that. True that. So, guys, we're going to head out. I'm going to remind you guys that hopefully you've been watching us all the way through this coverage of The Last of Us Episode 3. We gave you the 3 key words to enter for the Harry Potter, the giveaway for Hogwarts Legacy. It works like this. Watch the video, go back and rewatch it if you have to. I need you to pick up the 3 keywords that King Z has filtered through the playthrough time of this video. It's going to go live Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern. You guys watch the video, get the 3 words, throw them in the comments section, and we'll pick somebody at random. Probably, what do we give them? 2 days? We'll pick a winner Thursday, and you can
I say
we'll
Friday.
Reach out to you.
We have a Friday giveaway. We'll do a short video of us together, and we'll give it out.
True. Cool. So you guys got a few days to get into the comments. We'll pick one at random. We'll reach out via any means you guys want. You could probably hit me on Twitter. Actually, that might be good. If you have a Twitter handle or a social media handle, if you feel comfortable leaving that in the comments, maybe that's the best way to do it. And we'll reach out to you and get you the code to the game, and you can enjoy it next Friday. King Z, anything else? I know you've been on the road. You've been up since yesterday. What do you got?
Yep, back on the road. I'll be on the road through the majority of February. And then once I'm back, I'll be resting for 2 days, and then I'm on set for a new movie. So
nice.
getting back into the game.
Nice, real work coming your way. All right, that's it for King Z. That's it for Winter Wolf. Like and subscribe. Do us the favor. We love having you guys hang around for our bantering. Do us all that favor. Click the notification bell. I do have to get better at saying that over and over. Apparently, that drives traffic and helps people remember
If you like
stuff.
content like this, make sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss a new episode.
That's what I'm saying, dude. We're perfect for background listening at work. I'm trying to tone down, the potty mouth so we can be safe for work. You don't have to look at our ugly mugs. Just run it in the background. Clean your house, dude. I know you haven't done your dishes in 3 days. Just go do them. Put us on in the background, right? That should be a thing.
Yeah.
Until next time, that's housekeeping tips from King Z and Winter Wolf. We'll see you guys next week for The Last of Us Episode 4. Later, guys.